all adults and children. Welcome back to the Bad or Good show. Today we will have a debate on whether zoos are good or bad. Well, me, Ivor Jones, I will be on the bad side of why zoos should not exist. My father, Gavin Jones, will be here shortly. So let's get on to the debate. Come on, Father. This is my fellow father here, Gavin Jones. So you go first. What's your order?
Okay, so zoos are important because for two reasons really. One is from a conservation element, and also secondly from an education element. So from a conservation element, zoos over the last tens of years have managed to save up to 48 species that were possibly going to go extinct, including the Californian condor. There is a leopard, many species of rare frogs, and many others. So if zoos hadn't done that, there's a good possibility that those species would have been extinct. From the education point of view, if animals were just in the wild and humans, are very rarely going to go out into the wild and view elephants, say for example, or tigers, because they don't roam about in England. So from an education point of view, it's amazing for me to take my daughter to see the animals, and then you feel it fosters an understanding of what those animals are actually like. You see them in the flesh. If you didn't see them in the flesh, chances are you wouldn't relate to them in any way. So because you get to see them in the flesh at a zoo, then there's a chance that A, you understand them, or B, you understand what they need, and C, you're much more likely to care about the animal because you've actually seen it in the flesh. So that's the opportunity that zoos give. Many zoos really look after their animals, and they also there's a worldwide board, I think it's AZA, which is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which actually govern zoos and make sure that they treat the animals fairly and properly. So they have strict guidelines, and zoos have to adhere to it. The recognised zoos adhere to it. Ones like London Zoo, Chester Zoo, say for example Knowsley Safari Park, they have to adhere to those guidelines. There is an argument that people who aren't adhering to those guidelines, the smaller zoos or the home-run zoos, completely, they are not looking after the animals and they are a risk for the animals. But in my eyes, the proper run zoos, all good.
Well, to start this show off, right, let's put ourselves in the animals' shoes. So, imagine, close your eyes and imagine, right, that this ginormous big human comes up to you and says, oh look at this small house that is completely free. The only thing is you can't leave. You're trapped in there forever. So you can't go see your family, you can't go see your friends. I mean, we were in COVID for 2 years, weren't we?
Mm-hmm.
And we were panicking, even though we could go outside, have a breather, go get some, milk from the shop. I don't know why I mentioned milk. We could go outside, but we couldn't visit family, and then we were panicking, like, oh my goodness, what is this going to do to my life?
So therefore you're saying that we didn't like that, so what do you think the animals think about being in captivity?
Yeah, I mean, although zoos do protect, if you think about it, animals from hunters and poachers, I think you say it. Poachers. I searched up online that quite a lot of zoos kill half of their animals to make room for babies. So there's no point of protecting them from hunters and brought
But
to
in the
sport.
wild, wouldn't those animals die naturally anyway? Either they would be they would die from natural selection. So a more aggressive animal like a tiger would kill the animals below them in the food chain anyway.
So, if, like, let's say like a sloth, because that's one of my favourite animals, was in the jungle, he would live up to maybe about like 80 years maybe.
Right,
But if he was in the zoo, he would only live up to about 50.
right. Okay, well that's a bad thing.
Yes, and we can both agree on that.
Hmm.
And quite a lot of the animals don't have any control over their life anymore because they've been kept in captivity.
I get that, but also animals have very basic needs. So as long as and usually what they would do is they travel quite a distance to get one bit of food, one bit of water, shelter. At a zoo, everything is within grasp. So if you go to the zoo and, like, say for example, Nosey Safari Park, the elephant enclosure is quite big. There's water. They get fed.
I have something to say.
Go on.
At least we could go to safari parks so that they can roam free through it.
Okay, so you don't have as much problem with safari parks.
Yeah, no. The only thing is
Zoos
that
is the problem.
that you could kind of run them over.
No, not really, because people are restricted to how.
Yeah,
how
like at
quickly
least
they
you
can-
go kind of slow.
Yeah.
Habitat.
Okay, what else?
And anxiety and depression are both two examples of feelings that animals face.
In zoos.
Yeah, in zoos.
Right. Okay.
And animals is so common that it even has its own name.
What is it?
Zoochosis.
Zoochosis. Didn't know that. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is animals actually don't enjoy being kept cooped up, and they suffer mental health issues like humans would.
Yeah. So, like I said at
So
the
that
start.
doesn't seem like a good thing.
Like I said at the start, imagine if you were put in a tiny little cage, like the same, like you had to imagine that there was a cage, the same size as you basically, and you had to sit there for hours and hours, and while you're having like supper or tea, like people would walk up to you going, "Hey!" like banging on glass and stuff. Would you like that? No, you wouldn't.
It's pretty much what happens at my gigs.
Um,
But no, I get your point. I do
Yeah.
understand your point. Have you got another point there on top of the mental health issue? So what other points have you got?
I have this, but it answers one of yours. Most of animals aren't in danger, so you could
In
say
the
like,
wild? So
no, I
there's-
meant like you could say, but zoos save and care for animals when they're in danger. But I can say, but most of the animals aren't in danger and they're living their best life in the world.
out in the wild.
As you said before, all the zoos feed and give them water to the animals, but in the wild they would go hunt, obviously. But if you think about it, physically, they're not getting enough exercise, are they? 'Cause
So you're suppressing their natural instinct.
yeah, they won't
Right.
be able to roam around because they're in a little cage. But if they're given food, they're not getting enough exercise.
But we
are
don't
they?
hunt anymore. We used to hunt, and now we don't hunt, and we're all right.
I know, but like we walk around the house, don't we?
Well, they walk around in the area that we're allowed to walk around
I
in.
know, but the cages are usually small. I saw a picture on the internet of basically they're just digging a hole in the ground and placed a bear in it. And
Right,
it's got mould all over the walls.
right, okay. Well, that's an example of a bad zoo. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
But the zoos that are regulated by ASA, they're the ones that
I know, but that's
are
only
doing
half.
good.
Like that's. And also, I've got another fact here. Did you know that 75% of zoos abuse animals? Are mean to them.
That sounds like. Where did you get that quote from?
I'm online.
Which source though? That sounds like
Google.
well, Google's full of useless and wrong information.
It pops up everywhere.
Well, I think you need a source for that
I
one.
don't care.
Okay.
So, I think that will be the end of our debate. Which side do you agree on?
I still stick on my side, but I can see some of your points.
Yeah, I see some of your points, but
Yeah, so we're somewhere in the middle.
good debate.